What do raisins, oranges, figs, and cherries have to do with Christmas? Long before refrigeration and supermarkets, people found ways to capture the sweetness of summer and carry it through the cold winter months. From medieval monasteries and Mediterranean trade routes to Christmas pudding, fruitcake, and mince pies, we're uncovering the surprising history of why summer tastes like Christmas. Welcome to another serving of Seasons Eatings, the podcast which explores the history and origins of your favorite Christmas foods. Seasons Eatings can be found wherever you download your favorite podcasts. It's also found on Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Instagram. If you love the show, then I humbly ask you to share this podcast with someone you think would love to hear more about the history of Christmas and the foods which shape the holiday we love so much. And if you want to give me suggestions for a future episode, just email me at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com. All the links can be found in the show notes at seasonseatingspodcast.com. If I asked you to picture a traditional Christmas dessert, what comes to mind? Perhaps it's a rich Christmas pudding steaming gently on the table before someone sets it alight with brandy. Maybe it's a slice of fruitcake dense with raisins, currants, candied peel, and cherries. If you're in Germany, you might imagine a buttery stollen dusted with powdered sugar. In Italy, perhaps it's panettone, filled with citrus and dried fruit. Even a humble mince pie carries those familiar flavors. Raisins, currants, sultanas, candied orange peel, and maybe a handful of dried cranberries in a modern recipe. Now think of what all these desserts have in common. They're overflowing with fruit. Not just any fruit, but fruit that reaches its peak in the warmth of summer. Grapes are harvested under the blazing Mediterranean sun before becoming raisins. Cherries ripen in June and July. Citrus fruits mature in warmer climates. Figs swell in the late summer heat. Apples, plums, pears, currants, many of the fruits that define Christmas, begin life months before the first snowfall ever arrives. It's an odd contradiction once you think about it. Christmas, at least in much of the northern hemisphere, is in the heart of winter. The landscape is cold, the fields are bare, trees stand lifeless against gray skies, and yet our tables are filled with the preserved abundance of summer. So why do the flavors of the summer become the flavors of December? Why didn't Christmas become associated with root vegetables or smoked meats or the hardy crops that actually survived the winter months? The answer, as it turns out, is a story that stretches back nearly 2,000 years. A story about Roman farmers, medieval monks, Venetian merchants, crusaders returning from the Holy Land, and the rise of international trade, and humanity's remarkable determination to preserve the sweetness of summer for the darkest days of winter. Today we're following the journey of fruit, not from the supermarket shelf to the kitchen table, but across the centuries of history. One of the things I enjoy most about exploring Christmas history is discovering that many traditions we consider timeless were actually born out of necessity. Before supermarkets, refrigerated trucks, and certainly before air freight could deliver strawberries across the continent in the middle of winter, people lived according to the rhythm of the seasons. Now, it might sound obvious, but it's difficult for us to fully appreciate how seasonal life once was. Today, we can buy blueberries in January, oranges in July, and grapes almost every day of the year, and bananas regardless of where we live. if a particular fruit isn't growing locally, it's almost certainly growing somewhere else in the world, ready to be shipped thousands of kilometers to our grocery store. And for most of human history, none of that existed. If your village harvested cherries in June, then cherries were available in June. Then they were gone. The same was true for strawberries, apples, plums, pears. Virtually every fruit had its moment. Once that season passed, people either found a way to preserve it or wait another year. Winter simply wasn't inconvenient. It represented scarcity. Fresh produce became increasingly rare. Livestock consumed precious stores of hay. Grain harvest had to last until spring, and every household carefully managed the food they preserved during the warmer months. This annual cycle shaped nearly every aspect of medieval life. And it actually shaped Christmas. To understand why preserved fruit became so important, we need to understand Christmas itself. Today, Christmas dinner is a tradition. In medieval Europe, it was something more profound. For much of the year, ordinary people lived a remarkably simple diet. Bread formed the foundation of nearly every meal. Pottage, a thick stew of grains and vegetables and herbs, and occasionally some meat, was eaten almost daily. Cheese, onions, cabbage, beans, ale sustained much of northern Europe. Meat was expensive. Sugar was astonishingly expensive. And imported spices were almost unimaginable luxuries, unless you were the king. Fruit, unless it was growing nearby, was seasonal. And then Christmas arrived. The celebration of Christ's birth wasn't simply a religious holiday. It marked one of the few moments each year when families felt justified in bringing out their finest ingredients. The medieval church had established a calendar filled with fasts and feast days, and Christmas ranked among the most important. After the solemnity of Advent, a season intended for preparation and restraint, Christmas offered an opportunity for abundance. Tables that had been modest for weeks suddenly displayed the best the household could afford. Wealthier families might serve several courses, roasted meats, elaborate pastries, imported spices, and preserved fruits. Even poorer households stretched their resources to make the meal feel special. A little honey instead of plain bread, add an extra egg in the pudding, and a handful of dried fruit saved for months. These small additions transformed an ordinary meal into a celebration. And the feast wasn't just about eating well. It was about marking sacred time. Food became a way of expressing joy, hospitality, gratitude, and hope in the darkest part of the year. And because Christmas was exceptional ingredients found their place on the table. Now imagine standing in an English orchard sometime in September, perhaps around the 14th century. The apple trees are heavy with fruit. Nearby, blackberries cling to their thorny canes. Plums have ripened. Pears are ready to pick. Everywhere you look, there's abundance. But everyone knows something that we often forget. This won't last. Within weeks, the trees will be bare and frost will arrive. The growing season will end. So every household begins a race against time. Some fruit is eaten immediately. Some become cider. Some is cooked into preserves. Some is dried slowly over a gentle heat or the lingering warmth of the late summer. Every method has the same goal. Take something that will spoil within days and make it last until Christmas, or longer. This wasn't simply practical. It was one of humanity's oldest techniques. Long before people learned how to refrigerate food, we learned something equally important. Remove the water and the food survives. Drying fruit slows the growth of bacteria, molds, and yeasts that cause spoilage. While medieval people didn't understand microorganisms in the way we do today, generations of observation taught them that properly dried fruit could remain edible for months, even sometimes a year. In many ways, every raisin on a Christmas table represents a tiny triumph over time itself. Although we often associate raisins and figs with Victorian fruitcakes or Dickensian Christmas dinners, their history stretches back much further, thousands of years further. The earliest evidence for drying fruit appears in the ancient civilizations of the Near East, where the hot, dry climate naturally lent itself to preservation. Grapes left beneath the sun gradually transformed into raisins. Figs, dates, and apricots were similarly dried, concentrating their sugars while dramatically extending their shelf life. By the time of the ancient Egyptians, dried fruits had become valuable trade goods. The Greeks prized them, the Romans loved them. Roman agricultural writers describe methods of preserving grapes and figs, while wealthy households incorporated dried fruits into both everyday cooking and lavish banquets. Raisins became prizes at athletic competitions and offerings in religious ceremonies. This is an important point to keep in mind because it reminds us that dried fruit wasn't invented for Christmas. It existed thousands of years before Christianity. Christmas simply inherited one of the ancient world's greatest preservation techniques and gave it new meaning. When Christianity spread across Europe, it didn't erase existing agricultural knowledge. Instead, it absorbed it. The practical wisdom of Roman farmers, the preservation techniques of Mediterranean communities, and the seasonal rhythms of harvest all found a place within the Christian calendar. And by the Middle Ages, preserving fruit wasn't just a matter of survival. It became part of the preparation for the year's greatest feast. And that preparation would increasingly be shaped by an unlikely group of experts. We'll find out who the experts are after the break.
This holiday season, experience the joy of rewatching the same TV specials you watch every year in podcast form. It's the Advent Calendar House, a salute to all holiday specials, but mostly the Christmas ones. Count down to Christmas Eve with a new episode every other day in December about a different holiday show. From the must-watch classics to the lost treasures at the bottom of the DVD bargain bin. Learn the answers to questions nobody asked, like, when is a magic hat you throw away no longer yours? How many Muppets can fit inside a farmhouse? How did cavemen know about Christmas? Why is Elf making me cry? Subscribe now at adventcalendar.house and get 12 episodes every December. But that's not all. You'll also get 12 more episodes during Christmas in July. Why am I talking like a car salesman? It's a free podcast. It's the Advent Calendar House, a podcast on the internet.
It's the Advent Calendar House. It's Christmas!
Hello, this is Adam from Merry Britsmas. I am a Christmas fanatic from the UK who thinks that the world needs to know more about the traditions, telly and music that helps make a British Christmas really festive. I look at everything from mince pies to Boxing Day to Wham to Slade to the Royal Family to Doctor Who. If you want to find out more about a British Christmas, or you are British and want a hit of nostalgia, check me out at Merry Britsmas.
And happy blooming Christmas to you and all.
By the time we reach the end of summer, the apples have been picked, the grapes have been harvested, the figs and the plums were ripening beneath a warm sun. But in medieval Europe, everyone understood the same uncomfortable truth. Within a matter of weeks, winter will arrive. The orchards will fall silent, and the fresh sweetness of summer would become nothing more than a memory. Of course, that would change unless someone found a way to preserve it. And today, that seems almost effortless. We freeze berries, we vacuum seal vegetables, we preserve fruit with modern equipment that would seem miraculous to our ancestors. In the Middle Ages, however, preserving food requires patience, skill, and generations of accumulated knowledge. And surprisingly, some of Europe's greatest experts weren't professional cooks at all. They were monks. When many people picture medieval monasteries, they imagine silent stone buildings, illuminated manuscripts, and rows of monks chanting in candlelit chapels. Well, although those images contain some truth, monasteries were also remarkable centers of agriculture. In many parts of Europe, monasteries functioned almost like research institutions. Monks copied classical text, recorded weather patterns, experimented with farming techniques, cultivated medicinal herbs, managed vineyards and tended orchards, and documented the results of their work with extraordinary care. The Rule of Saint Benedict, written in the 6th century, emphasized both prayer and manual labor. Work was not seen as a distraction from faith, but as an expression of it. Caring for orchards, harvesting fruit, and preserving food became part of a rhythm that combined practical necessity with spiritual discipline. As a result, monasteries became some of the most productive agricultural communities in medieval Europe. Many maintained extensive orchards filled with apples, pears, cherries, plums, walnuts, and hazelnuts. In regions where the climate allowed, monks also cultivated vineyards, producing wine not only for religious ceremonies but for trade and everyday use. These orchards were like living libraries. Generation after generation, monks learned which varieties stored best, which dried more successfully, and which produced the finest preserves. Long before agricultural colleges existed, monasteries were quietly advancing the science of food preservation. Preserving food wasn't simply about preventing waste. It was about defeating time. Imagine harvesting thousands of grapes in early autumn. Fresh grapes remain fresh for only a short period of time before they begin to spoil. Left untouched, mold and fermentation quickly take hold. But spreading these same grapes beneath the late summer sun, or suspend them in warm, airy spaces where moisture could slowly escape, and something remarkable happens. As the water evaporates, the natural sugars become concentrated. The fruit becomes sweeter, the flavor deepens, its weight decreases dramatically, and perhaps more importantly, it survives the winter. Now apply this same principle to your figs, your apples, your pears, your plums. Some fruits were obviously sliced before drying, others were hung whole. Certain varieties required smoke or gentle warmth, while others just relied on the circulating air. Remove the moisture, preserve the flavor, extend the life. Now, here's something that might surprise you. In medieval Europe, food wasn't judged solely by taste. It was also judged by medicine. For centuries, European physicians relied on ancient theory of the four humors, inherited from Greek thinkers like Hippocrates and later developed by Galen. According to this system, good health depended on balancing your four body fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Now, each food possessed its own qualities. Some were considered hot, others cold, some moist, and others were dry. Even emotions were believed to influence this delicate balance. Now, fruit occupied an interesting position in this medical philosophy. Fresh fruit, when eaten in large quantities, were often viewed with suspicion. Physicians worried that all this extra moisture could upset digestion and disturb the body's internal harmony. Dried fruit, however, behaved differently. Removing the water changed not only its texture, but in the minds of medieval monks, its very nature. Combined with warming spices like cinnamon and cloves and ginger and nutmeg, preserved fruits became more suitable for winter, when cold and damp conditions were believed to dominate both the weather and the human body. And this helps explain something we still experience every Christmas. Why do fruitcakes and Christmas puddings and mince pies and mulled wine all rely so heavily on warming spices? The answer isn't simply just flavor. For medieval Europeans, these combinations were thought to promote health. A Christmas dessert wasn't merely indulgent. In sense, it was good medicine. Now, there's one more ingredient that changed Christmas in the medieval world. Today, it's ubiquitous. We put it in almost everything. It's sugar. In medieval Europe, sugar occupied an entirely different world. Originally imported from regions of the Eastern Mediterranean, sugar was rare, expensive, and frequently sold by apothecaries rather than grocers. In fact, many Europeans first encountered sugar not as food, but as medicine. Physicians prescribed it in syrups and tonics and remedies. Only gradually did the wealthy households begin using it in cooking. When combined with preserved fruit, sugar accomplished something remarkable. See, sugar is hygroscopic. It actually absorbs moisture, so it extends shelf life even further while creating flavors unlike anything available from ordinary ingredients. You have things like candied orange peel or candied lemon, crystallized ginger, or sugared almonds. Now, these in the medieval world weren't everyday treats. They were symbols of wealth. To place them on a Christmas table was to announce that this day stood apart from every other day of the year. So by the late Middle Ages, Christmas had become something extraordinary. Families didn't simply prepare one meal, they prepared for weeks. Fruit harvested months earlier was carefully rationed. Spices purchased at enormous expense were used sparingly. Sugar was measured with astonishing care. Nothing was wasted. Everything pointed toward the feast. And perhaps that's one of the greatest differences between their Christmas and ours. Today, abundance surrounds us almost constantly. Fresh fruit appears every week of the year. Luxury foods are ordinary. Seasonality has largely disappeared from our grocery stores. For medieval families, however, Christmas represented the moment when months of planning finally came together. Every raisin carried memories of the harvest. Every candied peel represented distant trade routes. Every pinch of cinnamon reflected journeys across continents. The Christmas table became a map of the known world. If you travel across Europe at Christmas, you'll encounter many different desserts. Germany has Stollen, Italy has panettone, France has fruit-filled brioche, Poland has festive breads rich with raisins and candied peel. Even where recipes differ dramatically, certain ingredients appear again and again. Raisins, candied citrus, figs, spices. Now, these aren't coincidences. They were the product of centuries of trade, preservation, and shared cultural exchange. Each region adapted the available ingredients to local tastes, but all were participating in the same larger story. The flavors of preserved summer had become the language of Christmas. Now, if you've listened to this podcast before, you will know that the 19th century appears surprisingly often in Christmas history. The Victorians, as we know, they didn't invent Christmas. Christmas was around long before the Victorians were, but they did shape a version of it that many of us enjoy today. So as transportation improved and international trade expanded, dried fruits became more widely available to ordinary families. Cookbooks standardized recipes, And Charles Dickens filled his stories with images of generous holiday meals. So by the end of the 19th century, the connection between Christmas and dried fruit had become firmly established. Generation after generation learned that Christmas smells like cinnamon. It tastes like raisins. It looks like candied orange peel glistening from the inside of a cake. And these associations become memories. And memories become traditions. So why do we still make fruitcake? Why do we still bake Christmas puddings? Why do raisins continually appear in holiday recipes when fresh fruit is available every day of the year? Surely we could reinvent Christmas entirely, and some people have. But somehow the old recipes endure. I think it's because Christmas has never been solely driven by convenience. It's driven by memory. Every family carries echoes of the generations that prepared before. When we soak raisins for a cake, when we chop candied peel, when we stir together cinnamon and cloves and nutmeg and dried fruit, we are participating in rituals that connect us to people surrounded by centuries. Most of us aren't consciously thinking of medieval monasteries, or Roman vineyards, or spice trade routes, but their influence lives on every time those familiar aromas fill the kitchen. Food has always been one of history's most remarkable storytellers. And sometimes we just simply forget to listen. So, the next time you cut into a slice of Christmas cake, or break apart a warm mince pie, or spoon rich Christmas pudding onto your plate, take a moment and look beyond the recipe. Inside those raisins are Mediterranean vineyards warmed by the summer sun. Inside the candied orange peel are centuries of trade across seas and continents. Inside the spices are journeys that connected civilizations. And inside every bite is a tradition that reminds us one simple truth. Sometimes the best way to survive winter is to save a little piece of summer. Thank you for listening to this serving of Seasons Eatings. Seasons Eatings is available wherever you download your favorite podcasts. So please, if you can leave a review about the show so we can spread the Christmas cheer. And I would also love to hear from you. Send me an email at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com to let me know how you like the show, suggestions for future episodes, or just to say hi. I know we all get busy, so even sharing this podcast with someone you know who loves Christmas would be a great help. And if you're feeling extra generous this season, you can buy me an eggnog. Head on over to seasonseatingspodcast.com and click on the little cup in the corner. Each small donation helps with the daily running of the podcast and is greatly appreciated. Thank you for listening. I'm Glenn Warren, and tune in again for another serving of Seasons Eatings. All music for Seasons Eatings is used under the Creative Commons license.